Hello, and welcome to Navigating Turbulent Times with NIPIGON, a place where we answer your questions about the Corps, cadets in general, and ourselves. My name is Lieutenant Navy Laura Hood, and I'm the Unit Training Officer and your host. I'm staying home to talk to cadets, staff, and special guests about their cadet experience. Tune in weekly for updates as we navigate these waters together. So welcome to another episode of Navigating Turbulent Times with NIPIGON. This week I am joined by a very special guest, Lieutenant Commander Owens. He was a volunteer with 341 NIPIGON from 2007 to 2010. During this time, he helped coach the drill team, assisted with drill dress deportment, and leadership training. He was able to bring a very unique skill set to the unit as a regular force member. He was posted to Ottawa in 2010, but he had, of course, left a very lasting impression on the cadets and staff of 341. I would like to thank you very much for joining us this week on our episode.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you could just give us a brief introduction about yourself. Start off.
Well, thanks for the introduction. Before we start, to say the cadet program is one that I started with way back when I was living in St. John, New Brunswick. I started with the cadet program, and now we're looking at over 30 years later. I'm still in uniform, still shining my boots, so quite an important program. But from my military point of view, I joined the Royal Canadian Navy in June of 1991. So I'm just completing 29 years of service here now in Halifax, Nova Scotia, working with Joint Task Force Atlantic.
Great, thank you. Now, you were a volunteer with our unit back when I was a cadet, and I'm wondering if you could give us a bit of an insight of what it was like to volunteer with either our unit or another unit you worked with as well.
When I decided to volunteer, I was with CFB Gagetown working on the base, and I thought it was an opportunity, being a Navy uniformed sailor, to get back to a Navy Sea Cadet Corps. So walking in, it was a little bit strange, walking in with all the green and then all of a sudden seeing the dark blue and black and the white. But it was actually a very interesting start. Although cadets change, what I found was the kids, that are involved in the program, regardless of whether it was in New Brunswick or in Ottawa or those other corps that I've dealt with, really you have a bond because there's a common interest in what is happening in the cadet program, whether that's sailing, whether that's marksmanship, biathlon, or drill or leadership. There's a uniting bond that pulls everybody together. And the kids that I met in NIPIGON that are now your leaders in the Corps, it's the same phenomenon that occurred in Ottawa. Kids that I met when they were just wide-eyed and braces and smiles are now members of the Canadian Forces and volunteering with cadet corps or as cadet instructor cadre officers. So not too much has changed, but very similar across the country that I've seen.
Yeah. Do you have any specific memories maybe with the Corps or what were the cadets maybe personality-wise like when you were with our Corps?
I think I was a bit of a shock when I showed up. I was a little bit more hardcore, I guess, when I first went in there. But I think when we got focused, and especially drill was my passion, it still is, working with the drill team, and of course our rivalry with a certain corps in St. John.
Still exists.
I was never a part of, by the way. I think that brought us together, and it was a really good group of cadets. We were small, the drill team, was a small group, but I think it was a really fun time to be creative, and everybody had a chance to collaborate and bring their ideas forward. And I think that's the most memorable part, is running off to do the drill competitions, but really spending each and every day that we went out and trained over and over and over again with the drill. That was probably the most memorable part of my cadet experience at NIPIGON.
Yeah, I remember having drill teams as small as 6 and as big as 18 on the floor. And still today, we make up weird names for the drill movements and call it different things and pick out different ideas to pull from years past to work with. So all of those things still happen, and we always have tons of fun at our drill practices. I mean, they think I explain things very oddly to them, but it works, and we have lots of fun. We always have great results because of that. So thank you for that as well. So as we can see, and as you mentioned, you are a member of the Royal Canadian Navy. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a bit about what your job is in the Navy.
So right now, I'm actually wear two hats working here in Halifax. So the first job, I am the Senior Public Affairs Officer for Joint Task Force Atlantic. And really what we're responsible for is any, what they call domestic operation that occurs in the 4 Atlantic provinces. Just shortly after I arrived here in Halifax, we had that little hurricane that blew through town that caused a lot of damage. I ran the communications aspect for that, speaking to the public, speaking to the media, briefing the Admiral, who is also Commander of the Navy on the East Coast, but also Joint Task Force Atlantic, telling him, how to communicate as well. So that kept us busy. And of course, the snowstorm in Newfoundland that some of you heard of, again, one of those domestic operations that I ran the communications for. The other hat that I wear is the search and rescue hat. So I run all the communications for the search and rescue region Halifax, which not only encompasses the 4 Atlantic provinces, but also half of Quebec, the province of Quebec, from Quebec City east, all of Labrador, and halfway up Baffin Island to Iqaluit. So any search and rescue, either on the water or in the air, anytime you hear of a Cormorant aircraft flying in Atlantic Canada, that's the communications part that I will be dealing with.
That's a very large area to be responsible for. One of the years that you were with our Corps, you were deployed. I remember you used to send us emails and updates about what types of things you guys were doing and seeing. I wonder if you could tell us what life is really like aboard ship when you're deployed.
So prior to becoming a public affairs officer, I was a maritime subsurface officer. Now they call it a naval warfare officer. And of course, my time was mainly spent at sea. Being at sea is a very interesting environment. It takes a little bit getting used to. Your personal space is very, very limited. You tend to share your accommodations with some of your closest friends that you just met yesterday. So it's very sharing and very close. But much like the cadet program, there's a camaraderie there. We're all there for the same reasons, especially going on deployment, where we have a main focus to go for. So going to sea and then going overseas to different countries and seeing the world, doing tasks for Canada that maybe some people don't know we do, but is really important, I think, to Canada in general, and to our NATO allies and our international allies. I think is a really rewarding job. In 2009, the deployment you're speaking of, it was with HMCS Fredericton, so the namesake ship from just up the road from NIPIGON, and it was to combat piracy off the coast of Somalia. So we patrolled for several months off the coast, making sure that civilian vessels that were transiting, free commerce, oil tankers, natural gas, bulk carriers, the same things you would see in going in and out of St. John Harbor, that they were allowed to free passage through that area. We saw pirates, and they don't look anything like Captain Jack Sparrow or anything of that nature. They don't have parrots, but we saw a few. We saw some interesting situations, but certainly during our time there was no pirate boardings in our zone that we were working in. So it was a positive result in that regard.
And of course, as you know, one of the aims of the cadet program is to introduce the cadets to the aspects of the Canadian Forces and to pique their interest in that area. So we currently have a number of cadets actually who are very interested in joining the forces. I'm wondering if you have a piece of advice that you could offer to those people, those cadets who are looking to do that.
My time, I've been fortunate. I started as a cadet, went into the Naval Reserve, so part-time, went full-time, and I've changed trades 3 times now, starting as a diver, a maritime subsurface, and now public affairs. And that became apparent that it was able to do that because my eyes were wide open. And I think that's the best advice is make sure your eyes are wide open to what you're deciding to do. Stick to your gut. If you want to go into the forces and you want to be a pilot, or you want to be a logistics officer, or you want to be a cook, stay true to what you want to be and pursue that dream, pursue that goal. Don't compromise at the beginning. Go into what you want, but don't be afraid to change later on if you see other experiences when you're there. It's tough. There's some days when it's extremely tough. You're working late hours. You could be deployed for up to 6 months away from your friends and family. But the rewards certainly outweigh the challenge that you do have. It's a great job. You can travel the world, both in the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. It doesn't really matter. You get to see things that you would never believe you would ever have seen growing up in Oromocto or in Burton or around the area or in New Brunswick. I can't sometimes believe the things that I've experienced in my lifetime, and it's all because of the forces. It's a great opportunity, education-wise, experience-wise, friends-wise, and it's a great thing to move on to if you decide that you want to pursue a career in the forces, both either reserve or regular force. And your experience with the cadet program is certainly where a great foundation starts. Many of my friends were cadets. Many of the senior leadership in the Canadian Armed Forces started as young cadets themselves, 12 years old, looking at boots for the first time, not sure what they wanted to do, and now are generals and admirals. And many cadets that I work with, both at NIPIGON and in other corps, have all gone on to really varied careers in the forces, both reserve and reg force. So, if that's something that people are interested in, get all the information, ask all the right questions, and really, follow your dreams and follow the career path that you really want to do.
Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice, and especially keeping your mind open and having a goal and going for it, but don't be afraid to maybe deviate from that plan for a little bit and try different things is really important. That's one thing we try to encourage our cadets to do as well. Try all the teams. Try to find out what you're really passionate about, what you're really good at. Like I said in another video, I found out that I'm not really good at playing an instrument. I did it, but I did it to find out that I wasn't very good at it. that was okay. It was a good learning process.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you mentioned you were a cadet in St. John.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have another piece of advice, keeping the same theme, I guess, for cadets that are in the program today, whether they're that new ordinary seaman or a Chief 1?
During your time in cadets, enjoy every moment you can.
Yeah.
Time flies very fast. You tend to look back, and the last thing you want to do is ask yourself, or say to yourself, why didn't I do this or do that? As your officer said, try things, be a part of the band, be a part of the drill team, try biathlon, try marksmanship, try everything you can, try sailing, get your sailing courses done. Expose yourself to everything, and you'll be surprised at what you're actually comfortable with, what you enjoy, something that you just didn't expect, and pursue those dreams. But enjoy every moment you can. There's obviously going to be some days on parade where it's long, or you're on a Battle of the Atlantic parade and it's cold, or it's really hot. You never know with New Brunswick weather what's going to happen, and those days are long. I've been there. But enjoy that time that you've had in your uniform, because it means so much more in the future, and those experiences you gain that you're having right now. You'll remember them as you grow older as to the reasons why you do things. I remember the day that I decided to join as a cadet. I remember it like it was yesterday. And that's stayed true to me the entire time that I've been in the Canadian Forces, as to the important periods of time in my life. My cadet experience was one of them, for sure.
Thank you very much. Those are excellent words of advice for everyone who's out there listening as well. Yeah, chew and try everything. It's so true, and it's so important, and it does go by very quickly. I would like to thank you so much for joining us this week on our new podcast series, Navigating Turbulent Times with NIPIGON. It's always nice to catch up with previous members of the Corps and people who used to volunteer and who have left a lasting impact that we can show our cadets today. As I'm sure you may not be aware, NIPIGON is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. So we have 20 years of historical records to go through and to catch up with old members and things like that as well. So I'd like to remind everyone watching to please subscribe to our YouTube channel, drop us a like, send us your comments with questions or guest suggestions, and don't be afraid to subscribe to our Instagram channel as well. So until next time, I'm your training officer, Lieutenant Navy Laura Hood, and that was another episode of Navigating Turbulent Times with NIPIGON.